Arlene Hunter. If you got any real questions, she's the gal. She's the top of it all. So thank you, Arlene.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Arlene Hunter. I'm the city manager, and this is the very first in a series of many public workshops and opportunities for input, we hope, for the city's evaluation and appraisal review process. This is just the beginning of an approximately 8 to 9 month process, so there'll be plenty of opportunities to continue to receive your input. We will be working on creating a tab on the website that will be completely dedicated to the EAR process. And also we have a email address that you can send all your public comments to as well at Bonita, EAR 2023 at cityofbonitasprings.org. The city has contracted with Florida Gulf Coast University in the process of doing our evaluation appraisal review. This is a mandatory process by the Florida legislature, and the last one was over 7 years ago. So we're in that cycle again, and our actual year is due in April, but Dr. Banyan, Marker Banyan, will be joining us shortly virtually. She'll be going over all of those required due dates for the city as well. The comprehensive plan is integral in all of the state funding that we receive, federal funding, and it provides a vision for our community. As I said, we're in the very beginning of this process, so this is a listening mode for us to be able to receive your input and complete that with a visioning. I did want to make a couple quick introductions to you as well. With us this evening, we had our Mayor Rick Steinmeier right here, and Council Member Fred Forbes. And we also have our Zoning Board member Bruce Galloway and Zoning Board member Gary Gambrell. And so I make these special introductions to you because these are our zoning board are volunteers for our city and our city council members. They each might have an opportunity to vote on goals, objectives, and policies and review of the appraisal review process. And so what is best for them is to reserve their comments. I'm sure they feel very passionately about all these discussion points, but they're going to reserve their comments when they sit at the dais. As the city, as all local governments within Florida abide by the Florida Sunshine Law, so they're not able to communicate with each other outside of the sunshine. So when they communicate, they'll do that in their official capacity and their roles with the city. With that, I'd also like to encourage you all to sign in today. We will be taking pictures of the event today, and we're very happy that we had such a good turnout because on a Tuesday evening. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Banyan. She's going to introduce her team and go through the process and also give you a timeline on how we will conduct the evaluation appraisal review.
Well, good evening, everyone. I took our screen presentation just off for a minute so you could see that I am here, and I will have a PowerPoint presentation I would like to share tonight, and I'm going to start sharing now, but I did want you to see my face a little bit more clearly. But tonight what we have is really the process where we want to talk about do some education around the evaluation and appraisal review process, and then we will take public input. So thank you very much for attending this evening. We really look forward to hearing from you now and in the future. So what I'll do is first I want to introduce our team. So I'm a professor at Florida Gulf Coast University. I've been there since 2003 and have worked with the city of Bonita Springs roughly for the last 10 years. So really happy to be back and partner with the city. We also have Carmen Monroy, and she is working with us. She is Stantec, and so we oftentimes work with firms in the area for expertise. So Carmen, I can't see you, but I'm thinking that you're going to wave your hand and show everyone who you are. Carmen has her MPA, incidentally, from Florida Gulf Coast University as well. And then we also have with us Erica Makagi. Erica is currently a graduate student at Florida Gulf Coast University. So we are really proud to have this team, and behind us, there's quite a substantial list of experts that we can draw upon. So we're excited to go through this process. So tonight, what we'll do is we just have just a brief registration and welcome. That's the portion we're in now. And then I'll spend about a half an hour or so, maybe less, but to go over what this process is, and so that you have a good idea, expectation about what to expect. Like the city manager said, this is a 8 to 9 month process. And so we want to make sure that it's clear kind of what the process is about and that you have some opportunity for input. So after I go through that presentation, we'll split you up into a couple of groups and we'll have a community discussion. And then following that, we'll do a report out, wrap up the information that we heard tonight, and then I'll provide some next steps. So first, I just want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan. And many of you may already know this, but it's good to always kind of talk about what the role of the comprehensive plan is in the city's planning document. So the comprehensive plan is really your long-range planning document. And so what you see in that comprehensive plan are long-range policies, programs, and public investments. So it's a bit broader in scope. It, in general, guides the physical development of the city. There are other programs that are discussed in the comprehensive plan. And so when you think about kind of the role of the comprehensive plan, it sets out kind of that long-range strategy. So the structure of the comp plan is usually expressed in goals, objectives, and policies. You may see a bit variation where there may be sub-policies, et cetera. There's also lots of maps to express intent. But overall, it supports the city's vision for the future. And so I want to just kind of talk a little bit about the different elements in the comprehensive plan. You may, again, you may be familiar with these elements, and many of these are common to comprehensive plans in the state. So future land use element kind of looks at the physical development, density, development standards in the city. And then there's a transportation element that goes over the transportation systems in the city. Housing element can incorporate the different housing strategies, as well as a little bit of neighborhood development. Then infrastructure really focuses on the city's plans around sewer, water, all of the infrastructure elements. Coastal and conservation management is a significant element for the city, where some of the hurricane evacuation plans are some of the city's strategies around protection of the natural environment, coastal planning, that is in your conservation and coastal management element. Recreation and open space looks at the standards for parks, among other kind of open, developed and undeveloped parks. Intergovernmental coordination looks at the relationship with the city and other cities, or the relationship between the city and the state, or the city and the county. And then capital improvement is the element that describes all of the funding that the city will engage in over time. So the city also has a public participation element that outlines the involvement of the public, and then a public school facilities element. So those are the major elements of the city comprehensive plan as it stands today. And I just want to talk a little bit about the relationship of this comprehensive plan to other planning tools in the city. So you may see this in a lot of different contexts. And the reason why I share this is because the comprehensive plan really works with some of these other planning tools. This is not exclusive. There's other planning documents and there's other planning efforts. And yet these are kind of the major planning tools in most cities and counties. So you have the comprehensive plan, which I've talked a little bit about. That's your broad kind of long-term intent document. It's very policy focused. In some instances, more goal-oriented rather than specific. And you'll see kind of a more visioning in the comprehensive plan. The land development code, on the other hand, uses the language and the goals in the comprehensive plan. But what you see in the land development code, sometimes we call it LDCs, those are very specific development regulations. So where the comprehensive plan may talk about a goal for a neighborhood being walkable, for example, land development code would be much more specific about what that would mean. So for example, developments requiring sidewalks and the width of those sidewalks. So LDC is much more specific. And then you have the strategic plan, and the city strategic plan will often look at different priorities. It will look at funding, and it's much more short term. So the strategic generally is going to be around a 3 to 5 year kind of process. So the comprehensive plan usually will look out visioning for 20 to 25 years. Strategic plan, much more short term, 3 to 5 years. So I share that just so when you're sort of engaging in the process, you kind of know which piece we're working on. So we're working on the comprehensive plan, which is that broad long-term intent. So I know there's a lot of words on this slide, so I won't read you each and every one. But the process that we're looking at now is the evaluation and appraisal review. And so sometimes you're going to see it as an EAR or an EAR. And this process has been required by the state for many years. So for the city of Bonita Springs, and all cities actually and counties in the state, this review is required every 7 years. So it's officially known as the evaluation and appraisal review of the comprehensive plan. And when we've provided a footnote in case you want to go read a little bit more about what that EAR process looks like from the state. You can read a little bit more about that. So the intent really is to review changes for the state's perspective. It's reviewing changes in the comprehensive plan that are needed to reflect changing state requirements. So what we mean by that is when the legislature makes its changes in state statute, then the expectation is that the cities would review those changes in state statute and then determine whether the comprehensive plan is consistent with those changes at the state level. So that process takes a little work. I mean, the state requires that be done in every 7 years. Moreover, the state also asks cities and counties to review the changes needed to meet the city and community goals. So cities and counties may have different goals over time. So the EAR process is to review anything in the comprehensive plan that may need to be updated. In addition to that, trends and local conditions do often change. So you may see trends in demographics, you may see trends in environmental issues, et cetera. So the EAR process is to look at those trends and to see if there are any changes needed to the comprehensive plan. And then the latter part of the process will develop preliminary suggestions for amendments to the comprehensive plan. So after reviewing trends and local conditions, after looking at state statute, after looking at the city and community goals, if there are any changes that may be needed in the comprehensive plan, our team would look at suggestions for amendments. But I want to be clear that this process does not rewrite the comprehensive plan. So this part of the process, we will be doing no rewriting. no policies will change. It's a review only of the comprehensive plan. So overall, where those changes would come into effect is this year we'll be doing the EAR, evaluation and appraisal, and that will be due April 1, 2023. And so that's reviewing the current Bonita Springs comprehensive plan. Following that, if there are any changes that are required by the state, or if there are any changes that are suggested by the review process, the city will have 1 year to make those changes. So those updates and those changes, if needed, that would be due to the state by April 2024. So that the year following this process, the city would make actual changes to the comprehensive plan. And then in the future, if there's any land development regulations that may need to be updated, that would follow that process in 2024. So as you can see, it's kind of a longer term process to make any changes to the comprehensive plan. What I want to share with you a little bit is our EAR process. And right now, we're, as City Manager Arlene said, we're doing preliminary research. We've just very begun this process in fall of 2022. So that when I say fall, I mean October, November, we'll have developed a background report. And that background report will be looking at the current conditions and trends in the city. Following that background report, we'll start to work on an EAR draft report, and that will be the full report. And that we're anticipating winter of 2023. So when I say winter, roughly January, February. Following that draft report, we will be working with the local planning agency and the city council for review. And that review process will be around February, March of 2023. And then finally, we must submit the EAR to the State Department of Economic Opportunity by April 1, 2023. So it's a bit of a process to go through all of the information. During this whole time, we'll be conducting public outreach and civic engagement, and that will be ongoing. So beyond this, the public meetings that we hold, the LPA and council meetings are open, and I'll talk a little bit more about other processes that we have to get public input. So tonight, what we've done is we've started the conversation around the city's strategic priority areas. So remember, I talked a little bit about the city's strategic plan. So we collapsed some of the discussion items in the plan into 4 big, what we call buckets. The comprehensive plan is quite extensive, so we want to have a way to have this conversation that's accessible. And so this, you may see these themes kind of move throughout the EAR process, and some of the themes may grow. Of course, we'll be taking input on more specifics, but for tonight, what we've done is develop these 4 buckets. And those are around quality of life, water and the environment, economic development, and governance. So that's a place where we can start the conversation. Again, your input's not limited to those 4 areas. And we really want to be open, but again, it's kind of a way for us to frame that conversation a little bit. So when we talk about quality of life, what we mean here is what does it mean for the city to have strong neighborhoods and healthy communities? What does it mean? What does it look like for walkability and complete streets? How do we think about transportation? How do we think about land use, housing, parks, evacuation, and schools in terms of enhancing and contributing to your quality of life for residents? So there's quite a few things that impact quality of life. In fact, we had a conversation earlier that each of these 4 buckets that we're presenting to you are highly related one to another. So this is just a way to kind of start, again, frame the conversation. In terms of water and environment, we've started to look at water and environment relating to and having an impact on growth and development, water quality, stormwater, stormwater utilities, other utilities, and beach and river water quality. So when we're looking at water and the environment, we're looking at many more things. These things here listed on your screen are generally some of those more impactful things that are happening in the city. In terms of economic development, we want to get your feedback on downtown development, citywide aesthetics. And so you may think about kind of what does it look like when you're driving down Bonita Beach Road, for example. What are the entry markers in terms of the city? What are the landscaping? And again, this does impact quality of life, and it's also an economic development strategy. So wherever you want to make your comments is good for us. And then in terms of economic development, what are the development priorities of the city? What does density look like? What does land use look like in the city? How and where does industry and commerce fit within the city? What should be the goals around that? What does employment and corridor development look like when we're talking about economic development? And then the last bucket is around governance. So when we're talking about governance, what we're talking about is things like intergovernmental relationships and cooperation between the city and other cities, between the city and the county, the city and the state. What does good governance look like in terms of citizen outreach and accessibility? And then finally, what does good governance look like in terms of financial resilience for the city? So we are hoping to get some of your feedback on those areas as well. So to get your input, what we're hoping to do tonight is to split you into 2 groups and just have a discussion in your small groups. What we want to do is get as much input as we can for the time we have set aside. And to do that, it's going to be important, and you can help us, and you can help Erica and Carmen do this as well. Just make sure that other people that are at your table are also able to express their viewpoints. If you notice someone being quiet, give room for them to speak. So listen to each other. And again, we have a half an hour, so we want you to get as much as you can out on the table, but also be brief enough where we can capture everyone's feedback. So again, we'll split you into these small tables. You'll have 15 minutes per table. And then what Carmen and Erica will do is they're going to be taking notes on the easel pads that you see sitting with them. And they're going to keep a record of your ideas. And again, if you notice that there's a bit too much, pause, slow down, and help the note takers and facilitators in the room get points out so that we can get as much as we can written down. And then after about 15 minutes, what we'll have you do is you're going to switch to a new topic and switch to the other table. So Erica will be working with you on quality of life and governance, and Carmen will be working with you on water, environment, and economic development. So everybody's going to have a chance to talk about everything. And then for those of you that are online, what we'll do are listening via the live stream is you are welcome to email us comments, and I'm going to list the discussion questions. We'll have that displayed. So you're welcome to email comments to the Bonita Ear 2023 at cityofbonitasprings.org. Again, during the process, while the people in the room are making notes on the flip chart papers, feel free to email us comments, and I will help kind of facilitate that. At the end of the evening, what we'll do is we'll do a wrap up. So Carmen and Erica and myself will just do a brief report out about what we heard. And again, we're taking notes, so we'll be recording as much as we can in that way. After the meeting, of course, you're free to still write to that Bonita Ear 2023. Everyone is, so feel free to keep that email so that you can continue to have this conversation. So the questions, and I'm going to leave these posted while we do the breakout rooms. But the questions that are prompting is around quality of life. How are you defining quality of life? And then what actions or policies will protect or enhance quality of life in the city? Water and environment, somewhat similar, but for water and the environment, what issues are most important to you? And then again, kind of what policy or action should the city consider in that area? Around governance, when you think about governance, what does good governance mean to you? And then what actions or policies support good governance? And then finally, around economic development, what should the city consider in that broad area of economic development? And then what actions or policies support economic development? So we're really, we know, of course, that there's many things in the city and that they may not all fit within these perspectives. Don't worry about whether it fits in quality of life or another bucket. We will take note of your input and sort that out. With that, what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment and ask if you have any process questions at this point. If there's substantive questions about some of these areas or substantive comments, we'll ask you to deliver those comments at the table so that we can capture them more effectively. But I'm happy to spend a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, to just talk about if there's any comments or questions that you have about the process at this point that we're engaging in. And someone in the room may have to facilitate because I can only see myself at this point.
I don't think we have any questions on the process.
Okay, fantastic. And so
Dr. Banyan, we do have one.
Real quick, how do we get to see this later on?
yes, great question. So my understanding is the city's recording this meeting, and there will be a tab on the city's website, and that tab will be dedicated to the EAR process. And so all of the EAR materials, we will be putting them there on that tab. I don't believe the tab's created yet, but the PowerPoint will be there. Any documents that we're preparing in the process will be there. Link to the recording for this evening will be there. So that's kind of what we're hoping, is that everything, you can access it all there.
Thanks.
Great.
Dr. Banyan, I just wanted to make one comment on the agenda that is by the door. And the agenda by the door also contains that email in case somebody needs to reference it after they go home. So just for the record.
Yes, very good.
And I don't think we have any other questions.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's divide into two groups. Half will go to Carmen and half will go to Erica. I will set my timer for around 15 minutes so that we can make the switch and that you'll have time to talk about everything. And I'm going to post I'm going to share the screen so that you see the questions again, anyone that's live streaming.
Water, environment, and economic development.
All right, folks, I don't know if you can hear me, but it's about time to switch tables. Can folks hear me?
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, it's about time to switch tables. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Dr. Banyan, thank you. The groups are now
Good.
switching tables.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
irrigation policy. How's that? You were gonna say something.
My question is that on the east side of 75 on Bonita Beach Road, they're gonna be building
Give
a
me number
4,000
7 again.
unit development.
Dr. Banyan?
I'm pretty sure that they do want to clarify something. And that
Yes.
goes into water development and economic development, just because as far as Bonita Beach Road goes, we're gonna become exactly the same way as Amate
We
Road.
still have another couple minutes.
It's going to be totally congested.
So this is, so let me see if I can capture this. So is your concern the development that's happening east of 75 or this particular?
Well, there's gonna be a massive amount of new residents on the east side of 75. And my question is do we have the infrastructure for the roads to go ahead and handle it?
I get to ask the questions here. So east of I-75 development, what would you like to see? What is your,
I'd like to see the plan to go ahead and be able to make it so that we don't turn into an Amate or 75.
so we, okay.
Well, there's no connection down there anyway. Once you go all the way down to the end, there's no connection down there. Amaka Road is much different. That's the existing traffic goes all the way out of town. So that's where a lot of the work is coming today. So they're gonna hang over here because it doesn't go over there.
So east of 75 development needs to be, needs to develop with.
Well, that's just all of a sudden boom. That's, that, the other stuff may be gradual. It's always gonna be a gradual growth. When they put 4,000 units or doors right in one place and everything else.
So can I put my arms around that and it's like, you're talking about maybe preserving some green space or some natural space? More than, am I putting?
Preserve the green space north of Bonita Beach Road.
Noise up there.
It's already bought, it's already, work being developed right now. That's where the 4,000 units.
I think the noise ordinance.
So north of, I'm sorry, help me out, north of Bonita?
Bonita Beach Road. That's right.
Parking dogs, loud parties.
Dr. Banyan, can you hear us?
Yep, if I can interrupt and start to bring everybody back together. Yes, Antonio, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, everyone should start to come back together, wrap up the table discussion.
Groups are finishing.
So we're gonna tie the rope to.
Did you want one of these? Or do you have resources?
Okay, give me input 7 again. Take input 7. Take it. She can see us.
What's usually the time on their design? When someone goes ahead and puts the application in, because I watch it just about every day with grading to see,
All right, we are gonna wrap up now and I'm gonna call the groups together so that we can report out. This is some good discussion, and remember, there's an email address that you can, if you come up with another brilliant idea, please pass it over to Bonita after that. If we can call everybody to back together. How are you doing, Erica?
I see her.
Yeah.
Good job.
Pretty clear.
I want you to s-
Dr. Becky?
this-
Yes, I'm here. I'm ready to facilitate the wrap up.
Okay.
Great. You had some really good discussion. We captured a lot of notes. Erica's just putting her notes. Oh, thank you.
Just give it
Right.
to people who want.
Okay. Erica is doing a great job of putting up her notes. We're going to put them all up here in the front.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
And I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Banyan. Where do we get started?
Wonderful. What I thought we would do now is just have Carmen and Erica do just a quick summary of what happened at each of their tables. And then what I'll try to do is do a quick summary of the emails that we've been getting online. So Carmen, is that okay with you if you start?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with water and environment because we had lots of comments there. We had some comments around the quality of drinking water, preserving water, smart utilization of water, a lot of discussion about the Imperial River and how important it is to the community, access to the beach for all. Interesting comment here among them, just grabbing the highlights, addressing climate change and maybe creating a separate section to capture our resources around that. Again, the Imperial River, protecting it as an asset for the community, looking at its use for flood mitigation, lots of comments about keeping it clean, irrigation policy and making those policies smart, and tying a couple of comments about growth and equity, sustaining our small town businesses, and tying growth to available infrastructure. On economic development, talking about creating better human conditions for attracting and supporting the businesses that we have, including things like creating programs in our high schools that can feed high quality jobs, better promotion of what Bonita has, a little bit of a discussion around year-round residents and seasonal residents and aligning those goals. There was talk about development east of 75 and a lot of talk about new developments that could potentially come there and the infrastructure and tying a lot of the growth and some of the city's decisions to the infrastructure and the capacity that they have to absorb it. So with that, unless you have a question, I'm going to hand it to Erica. Here we go. Your turn.
Hi, so I covered governance. So first, we talked about different ways and how we can increase our communication to all populations of Bonita Springs, expanding social media, different signage, all the newspapers. The aging population enjoys their newspapers. Including outreach for events, not just what's going on within the city, in the doors of City Hall or different departments, but also the events going on. And also strengthening how we inform our populations within our neighborhoods. If there's something going on specifically within neighborhoods, how can Bonita Springs inform everybody in that neighborhood, not just the 1,000 feet rule? Making clearer directions on how we can take questions and concerns from our residents. And also going along with that, LDC regulations, how can we expand how we notify the public, the citizens of Bonita Springs? And also better coordination with FDEP and South Florida Water Management District for the stormwater infrastructure. And then I don't think I'm missing anything else for governance. And also advisory board communications. So moving on to quality of life, How can we make Bonita Springs a destination? Also managing through growth management. Let's get some good restaurants at Bamboo Village. How can we improve our visitor access to beaches, to public parks, to different downtown areas? We want to increase our public transportation. We talked about the different Lee Tran buses, also the Ultra buses. We were just a pilot program for that, so hopefully we can expand that in the future. And also including ADA accessibility, parks, trails, and complete streets within all areas of the city. Moving on to the other piece of paper, we have aesthetics, landscaping. We want to improve our wayfinding signage along streets to better know where we're going. Transportation, noise, we want to restrict the noise and everywhere, coming off from events, coming off from streets. We also want to plan ahead for the future. So autonomous vehicles, how can we get mixed housing? How can we put housing with public transportation and also electric vehicles? And we just want to keep Bonita Springs simple. Don't overcomplicate it. We also want to look out for our beach access, which is already mentioned before, ideas for noise control, preserving the history of Bonita Springs, and also thinking about redevelopment with access for visitors and residents. And that concludes quality of life. If there's any questions? Okay, that concludes the report out. So we're gonna do the, I guess, next steps.
Wait, I'll do a quick report out of what happened
sure.
online. So thank you, Carmen and Erica. Just really appreciate you, and also appreciate the folks in the room for providing really good, high quality feedback. And so I'll do my best to keep up virtually. I'll just kind of summarize some of the things that were coming in over email, and more later in terms of detail, but there was a decent amount of feedback regarding the downtown, with some, of course, concerns over the downtown development specific to the apartment complex coming in, but more directed towards the impacts on traffic and congestion. And with downtown, there was also emails related to development of a vibrant old town, somewhat related to the downtown, but also thinking about downtown as a destination, not a area where you would just drive through, but as a destination spot. There was questions regarding the updating status of the citywide traffic plan, citywide parks plan. In addition, questions about or comments about charging stations and some ways to look at sort of the traffic and traffic congestion and charging stations. In addition, there was comments related to quality of life, more or less, around development of an outstanding park system. And then, let's see, the just generally development of natural resources and resident access to green space and preservation of green space. A few concerns related to the development impacts of limiting green space and natural resources. And then finally, there was comment related to flooding and the impacts of flooding in the city. So that just a brief overview. What we will be doing with these notes is we'll be developing a summary of the input that we heard. That will be part of the public record. And again, sort of all of these things are being preserved for future review. So what I'll do before I open it up to questions is just share a little bit about our next steps here. And then if we have time, we have about 10, 11 minutes left. What we can do is just field any additional questions you might have. So again, I talked about what we're working on is developing that framework report that I talked about, and that will include some of the data that we've gathered to date, and that again fall sometime early to mid-fall 2022. We will also be launching a community survey, and that survey is going to be widely available online. We'll use the city's e-blast to notify you when that survey is available. And we'll also have announcements on that webpage that we talked about, as well as hopefully some of the other city announcement pages. So look out for that. That's roughly going to be in early October, and we'll hold that survey open for until sometime mid-December, so that we can gather as much feedback from the community as possible. And then again, January, February, we will have some additional public meetings just set aside solely for the public to give feedback on the findings that we've developed so far, as well as some of our preliminary recommendations. So those meetings will hopefully feed into some of the decisions that are made at the local planning agency and city council. I know that those two bodies really appreciate hearing from the public and your thoughts on the work that we've developed. Fall 2022 is we've already had a meeting with the LPA and city council, and then February, March 2023, we'll have additional meetings with those two bodies. And then just a last brief slide, because we will also put this presentation online. I've provided some context here. So City Bonita Springs web page. Again, that EAR contact email. You're, of course, feel free to, after you leave tonight, you may think of something that you didn't discuss, or you may think of other conclusions. Feel free to email that address. We're shuttling through things through that address so that we can keep everything as part of the public record. But you are also free to contact me directly. So my name and phone number and email address is here. And so if there's anything that you feel like it's important for me directly to know, then I'm happy to field questions there. And then finally, again, there's the Department of Economic Opportunity web address. So if there's something that from the state perspective about the process that you want to review, it's there. And you can kind of see the timeline for other cities and counties, et cetera, throughout the state. So that concludes our formal presentation for the meeting tonight, and we're happy to open it up if you have any questions. It looks like we have another few minutes if you want to stick around and ask me questions, or ask Carmen or Erica or whoever's else in the room. We're happy to entertain those. What? I've heard that you need to give everyone at least till the count of 7. We can give you till the count of 7. Or longer.
We did have a question oops, sorry. Yes. We did have a question earlier. Who can amend the comprehensive plan? Great question. So the comprehensive plan, when there are amendments, it goes through sort of the LPA review, but it is the city council that amends the comprehensive plan formally. So there may be requests to amend the plan, but this is a document that it has to have approval from city council formally.
All right, no more questions, it seems.
More questions? Well, if there are no more questions, again, again, we really appreciate your input tonight. And I look forward to seeing you again in the future. And again, feel free to, if there's things that you want to know or feedback that you have, that we're happy to entertain that. And so I look forward to seeing everyone again.
Thank you, Dr. Banion, and I just wanted to reiterate, again, this is a continuated process, so please participate. Please use the email address. One of the other questions I think I had received, is just for transparency, is to remind everyone that the City Council meets the very first Wednesday of the month and the third Wednesday of the month. Traditionally, we always meet on those days. The first meeting is at 5:30 p.m., and the third Wednesday in the month is usually a 9 a.m. Meeting, unless there's a specific zoning case or a budgetary item where we would move that meeting to 5:30. So we do post those agendas online, and we'll be able to continue to provide updates. If you have something more specific than the comprehensive plan that we didn't cover tonight, please also feel free to use that Bonita Ear 2023 email address, and we will filter that to the right department to make sure we can get an answer for you. Thank you all. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight.